Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith here to talk about some fight news announced this week. Islam Makhachev vacating his 155-pound title. So there'll be a championship fight between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria. I will break that down as the fight itself gets closer. You never know what's going to happen or not. My initial thoughts, I give Ilia Topuria a really good shot, especially against a Charles Oliveira who's been through a lot. Give him a good shot. DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev. Over the top, I would say that just off the top of my head, that Khamzat Chimaev has to prove that he can win a long, difficult fight against a real 185-pounder. He hasn't shown that yet. I would give the slight edge to DDP. Once again, I'll break these down as it gets closer, right? I do my regular fight breakdown. The news I really want to dive into is Islam Makhachev vacating at 155 to go up to 170 to, I assume, be the next contender for Jack Della Maddalena. Right. So whenever someone moves in weight class, they move up. Two things I look at. Number one, the style they have, does it translate? Number two, it's who's waiting for him there that might be a problem. Okay? In giving up the lightweight title, which the UFC is doing more and more now these days, Ilia Topuria gave up the 145-pound title to move up to 55. The whole double champ thing, what they're realizing is you don't want to hold up two divisions waiting for somebody to defend. I completely agree. I never liked the double champ thing. The only fighter to defend as a double champ was DC, where heavyweight and 205, literally the difference is, you can not cut weight and then cut weight. It's not like going up and down 15, 20 pounds the way you would have to in any other weight class. So anyway, I believe it holds up two divisions. I think it's the right thing to do. And also, it shows your commitment, okay? You give up the belt, I'm out. There's no way back. You've lost your big bargaining chip. You're no longer champ at 155, but you're burning the boats in a sense, which I don't really mind. That being said, let me start with the style of Islam Makhachev. The style that doesn't translate weight classes well is a style that requires some kind of physical dominance or power. What I mean by that is, are you a blast double leg monster like a Matt Hughes? Matt Hughes, former champion, 170 pounds, was just stronger than everybody at 170. There are a million stories, even in the gym, of him just beasting guys, just crazy powerful at 170 pounds. And his style wasn't the slickest wrestler on earth, right? Two-time All-American, but, didn't have that John Smith, Saitiev really slick takedown. It was like double leg, lift you to the moon, bam, slam you down again. At 185, he doesn't have any of that. At 185, taking on a real thick, physical, strong middleweight, suddenly you're not that strong anymore. And a style like that brawling takedown style doesn't do well. It doesn't translate. The flip side of that coin is the brawling striking style, where you rely a lot on your power. Robbie Lawler is my favorite example. I just called here on my channel, not called, but broke down Robbie Lawler versus Mayhem Miller at 185, an icon for my Classic Fight Club thing. And I encourage you to check it out. What I talk about is Robbie Lawler knocked guys out with one shot at 170. When he moved up to middleweight, he didn't have that ability. He was win some, lose some against elite talent. All right, well, he could still hurt you at 185, but it wasn't like it was at 170 where guys were looking at the ceiling having no idea what happened. 185ers, Jason Miller, a great example, could eat those shots and keep going. And he lost to Jason Miller. Lost to Tim Kennedy. Lost to some, good but kind of middle-of-the-road guys at 185. And at 170, he was the elite of the elite. So he's kind of my example of a guy who really needed power to be successful. Well, when you move up 15 pounds, a knockout punch at 170 is not a knockout punch at 185. Evan Tanner, beat him by triangle. He's better than those guys, right, at 170. So does Islam fall into that category? A little bit, in that he really relies on his takedown. He really relies on his wrestling. Folks, it's a different ball game wrestling somebody a weight class up. Now, when you really get into the elite of the elite, international wrestling, Olympics, world level, guys don't change weight classes much. Buvasar Saitiev is the greatest freestyle wrestler of all time. He's deceased recently under mysterious circumstances. Read about it if you want. He competed at the world level, Olympics and World Championships, the same weight class. It shifted slightly because they changed weight classes around, but at the same weight class his whole career. Why? When you move up, It's way different. And a really good wrestler becomes a middle-of-the-road guy because the weight is such a factor. When you shoot in on a guy and they hit you with those hips and they have a natural 20 pounds on you, it's different. Striking, Roy Jones Jr. started out at middleweight, won a title at heavyweight. Why? Because he's fast and accurate and explosive, and that works all the way up. From middleweight to light heavyweight to heavyweight, Roy Jones Jr.'s style worked. He didn't rely on his ability to knock you out with one shot. He outmoved you and through beautiful combinations. Well, he could do it up to heavyweight. But once you factor in the grappling, it's really difficult to be a success and to really have standout performances when you aren't at the top of the weight class. Jacare, one of the few to do well in the open division, wasn't a heavyweight. Obviously, his wins over Hojo Gracie in his prime, blah, 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 blah. So Islam has a style that relies a lot on his takedown. He doesn't have the slickest takedown in the world. And what I mean by that is ankle picks, single leg, stuff that doesn't, knee taps, stuff that doesn't require a whole lot of commitment physically. He's a double leg, single leg, high crotch guy. And those get much harder when you move up in weight class. Will his submission game translate? Once again, it isn't super slick. He has a really good front chokes or anything like a Darce, Anaconda, Guillotine, and when you're the front of a person, front choke. He has really good front chokes. Hard to use against guys who are a lot bigger and stronger. Arm triangle, stuff like that, slick. He's really good with them. Is he able to get those dominant positions on, he's not a transition footlock, heel hook guy, right? The kind of style where, okay, like you can, ankles don't get any bigger as you grow up. Your ankle might be a little bigger, but you get heel hooked, it's all the same. Will his submission style translate? Maybe, but it's all positional. He has a game that he needs to get on top of you and work you in that top pressure and all that stuff, and that's so much harder to do against heavier guys, and he's going to be taking on heavier guys. His striking is nice. It's slick, it's clean. Doesn't rely on one-shot power, but he's always used his striking to kind of set up his grappling, and grappling might be the issue going up another 15 pounds. He isn't a Jose Aldo explosive, bang, 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 six-punch combinations. He's not that guy. That translates weight class well. Islam, not so much. He is good, right? He's solid. Much like Khabib. Is he solid enough to really use it a weight class up? I didn't have a whole lot of faith in Khabib at 170. I thought, for the same reasons I'm iffy about Islam at 170, is you're used to beasting guys at 55, just going in and grinding and pushing them against the fence and wearing them out in a way that's really hard to do when a guy's bigger than you. And but Islam does have better striking, I think, than Khabib, but it's not incredible. It's not super dynamic. It isn't the kind where I think he can go from 55 to 70 and have a ton of success on the feet. He'll be competent. I don't think guys are going to run right over him at all. Even the good strikers are going to have some trouble with him. It's how well does he transition to his grappling when guys are so much bigger? What's waiting for him? That's a big question. You have to know the history of 155 pounds and the history of 170 pounds. 155 has always been a striker's division. They're well-rounded. They can do a lot of stuff, but it's typically been a striker's division or a jiu-jitsu guy's division, BJ Penn, Charles Oliveira, blah, 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 blah. There have been very few wrestling-centric guys at 155. Sean Shirk, I would say Frankie Edgar was wrestling-centric. Benson Henderson was a good wrestler. He's more well-rounded than an endless gas tank, but he wasn't a D1 guy. He wasn't, and also he wasn't a powerful, physically dominant kind of wrestler. That's kind of how 155 works. They tend to be really well-rounded. They tend to be more on the striking side. So Islam, throughout his career at 155, didn't run into a lot of guys who could, stop his takedown, threaten with takedowns of their own. He was almost always the better wrestler, period. 170 is full of great wrestlers, always has been. From the beginning. There are exceptions to the rule. Robbie Lawler was more striker than wrestler. But the vast majority, Johnny Hendricks, Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, it's always been the division of Matt Hughes, Frank Trigg. It's always been the division of the Division I wrestling guys. or D2 in Usman's case, but still very, very good. It's always been 170. You can't get to the top at 170 without either A, being a great wrestler or dealing with great wrestlers. A lot of 55ers who faced Islam Makhachev and Khabib before him, that was the first time they were really dealing with anybody like that. And when you look at, hey, what about Michael Chandler, right? What about Justin Gaethje? They were all-American wrestlers one time. They hardly ever used it in MMA. They almost always used their wrestling defensively. They really didn't go for a takedown on you very often. Not like the 170-pounders where that was their bread and butter and they did it all the time. So even when you got those guys who might have that D1 experience, they didn't use it like the 170s do. And it's important that even if you didn't have it, you had to deal with that. We're going to go into that in a second. So who's waiting for him at 170? Right now, he's almost certainly going to get Jack Della Magdalena instantly. You don't give up your title and wait in line and fight two guys before you get a title shot, right? I don't think he would do that. So it's almost, and Dana White said as much. So Jack Della Magdalena is probably the guy he's going to fight. But if I look at just to break down the group that's waiting for him, Jack Della Magdalena, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Sean Brady, Ian Machado Gary. Two strikers, two grapplers, I guess you want to categorize them that way, although they're all really well-rounded. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a bigger version of him. He does a lot of the same things that Islam does. Whether one's better than the other is a matter of opinion, but Shavkat Rakhmonov is a big 170. That dude is monstrous. He's Kazakh. He's from Kazakhstan. And the guy just has that Eastern European, hard-nosed, grinding wrestling background and opportunistic submission game to go with some really vicious striking. There you go. Sean Brady, I think, is an absolute monster. His grappling, especially his jiu-jitsu game, is some of the top. I think the top in the division, but some of the top in the UFC, period. The guy's really, really good. So I don't think he beats either one of those guys. And even Ian Machado Gary and Jack Della Magdalena, who will probably take on first. Jack Della Magdalena just beat a wrestling-centric guy. He just beat Bilal Muhammad. Now, as I broke down post-fight, Bilal really wasn't able to make his takedown a factor in the fight. He wasn't able to get it going. Was it him, or was it Jack Della Magdalena has good footwork, good range, good angles, like a lot of guys do these days? He's a big 170, and Bilal was just never in a position to use it, right? I tend to give more credit to Jack Della Magdalena than I think, Bilal just had a bad night that night. I really think Jack Della Magdalena was able to keep him on the outside and angle really well. That's why I hesitate. When I went over the top four, two strikers, two grapplers, it doesn't... Come on, it's modern MMA. Guys are really, really good. And even the guys who are striking-centric know how to deal with a grappler, right? They're never really standing in front of them. They're always angling, always keeping a jab in their face, right? You're mixing up the kicks and the punches to not get predictable, not to throw too many head kicks where a guy can just catch it and take you down, stuff like that. So, as I said about 170, you can't get to where these guys have gotten without dealing with a few of those guys. And Ian Machado Gary lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, but it was a very competitive fight. He didn't get steamrolled by this big, strong, physical grappler, i.e. an Islam Makhachev. He didn't get run over by a bigger version of that. Very competitive fight. I gained a lot of respect from that fight. I thought I did very, very well. And once again, Jack Della Magdalena beats Gilbert Burns, world champion in jiu-jitsu, by angling, moving, and making a striking battle and negating the takedown. And then he beat Bilal Muhammad doing the exact same thing. So these are guys that you may go, oh, he's a striker. Islam's going to take him down. Well, guys these days are really good at dealing with all that stuff, and they're bigger. Jack Della Magdalena, when I saw him fight Bilal Muhammad, who's not a small 170, I went, woo, that guy's big. When you saw him face to face, I went, oh, that's a big dude. It is really difficult if you're Islam to kind of get around that size disparity and that range disparity. He's tall, he's long. It's really hard to get around that. Not that Islam can't, right? I'm just saying it would be an incredible accomplishment. And one of the things that kind of really pisses me off in MMA when it comes to fans and fighters themselves, I always say people want all the credit, none of the blame, right? Things go right, it was my fault. Things go wrong, it was somebody else's fault. I hate that. There's a similar thing. People doubted me. I beat the odds. You can't beat the odds unless people doubt you. It's not a great accomplishment if everyone thinks you can do it, right? If there aren't people going, oh man, that's tough. If everyone could climb Everest, it wouldn't be a big deal when you did it, But it's hard and it's difficult, so it's therefore an accomplishment. Islam wants the accomplishment of changing weight classes, moving up, which is the first big jump in MMA, by the way. It's the first 15-pound jumps, 55 to 70. History is not kind, meaning BJ Penn did it, and the only 170-pounder he beat in the UFC was Matt Hughes. Everybody else beat him. So even, I think, the most talented fighter of all time basically could beat one guy at once. It's really tough to make that jump and have success. Gilbert Burns went from 55 to 70, never won a title, fought for a title, never won it. So he was a factor, but never number one. It's really, really, really hard to do. Really hard. And so when I cast doubt on Islam Makhachev's ability to become champion at 170, all I'm saying is it's really hard to do, and I'd be really impressed. So I'm not saying he can't. Also, there are always people in the comment section going, well, he's already pretty big. Folks, guys now, when I was fighting, your average 170-pounder was it's about 10 pounds per generation. What I mean by that is, when I was fighting guys who fought at 170 pounds weighed around 190, I was kind of light. I was like, 83, 85-ish, okay? But the real UFC 170 pounders walked around 190, right? And then that next generation up, they walked around 200. Now it's like 205, 210. I know for a fact that Douglas Lima walked around 210 when he was in Bellator. I remember watching, who was it? It was King Mo was fighting, and he was fighting heavyweight. He was like 210. And I was standing next to him, right? I was standing next to Douglas Lima, and he's walking in and said 210, and I go, you get that heavy? And he goes, yeah, I shouldn't, but I do. He's like laughing. He goes, yeah, sometimes. Mother effer fought at 170, weighed 210. So it's this idea that, oh, he's big. The only way I can describe it to you, if you haven't been around it, if you haven't been around combat sports and met some of these people, and I've met just about everybody, it's the difference between a real off-road capable truck, one that's built to go off-road, and a sedan that has off-road tires on it. Well, they both go off-road. No. One is designed specifically to have a frame to do certain things. The other one is a frame that you add things onto to do stuff. That's what I mean. A 55er can gain muscle. A 55er can fill up and gain muscle and move up. But the frame doesn't hold that muscle the way a frame that's naturally heavier would. And you can just tell the difference immediately. When you shake hands with a natural welterweight, it feels totally different than shaking hands with a big 155-pounder. It's not the same. When you grapple with those guys, and I've grappled with a lot of them, my God, a natural guy who's a weight class up feels completely different than even a big fighter of another weight class. Totally different. Michael Chiesa, when I rolled with him, felt completely different than a natural 170. He's like a tweener. He's like a big 55er 170. We grappled a few years ago. He didn't feel like those natural real 170s that are stepping on the mat and they're real big. Man, they're so much bigger and so much stronger. You just feel different. And Islam has to overcome that. And it's not going to be easy. Obviously, as all these fights that I just mentioned get closer and actually, we're close to them actually happening, that's when I will do my fight breakdowns as always. But I just want to give some thoughts about Islam and him moving up and what he could do. Could he be champion? Yes. It would be an incredible accomplishment. Not saying I wouldn't love to see it, I would, but it's going to be a tough road. 170 is monstrous, always has been. Appreciate you. Give me a like, a subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.